Home stretch here if you're a baseball player, start of the third period if you're a hockey player. This is a Title IX panel. I'm psyched. As you heard, I'm Angela Ruggiero, a four-time Olympian in hockey, LA native. Look at this rock star panel of women. Thank you. So I just want to start by saying great job, Renata and team. This is such an amazing summit. Such an honor to be here. What I want to talk about, playing off of what Donna explained, is Title IX. Who's affected by Title IX? Show of hands. Okay, everyone's hand should be in the air. Title IX, think about the 19th Amendment, right to vote. Title IX is the only other law we have on the books, Friday, to protect women. Literally. This law is not just a sports act. This is an educational act. It's a federal act. It's so important. We've had it for 50 years. We're celebrating it here today, but I want to hear everyone's perspective. So I'm going to introduce my panel. When I finish introducing you, I'd love for you to give us how has Title IX affected your life. So I'm going to start with Gwen Berry. Gwen's a world-class athlete. You know her as a javelin thrower, two-time Olympian. She's very involved philanthropically, but it's her activism that I want to talk about today. 2020 Toyota Humanitarian Award recipient for her activism, educating others on social justice issues. She started Activist Athlete, you see a little brand there, 2021, that focuses on encouraging athletes standing up for social justice and inequality. You've just been so inspirational, but you've had your own personal experiences with Title IX. Tell me why this law is so important to you.
I feel like this law is important, not only for me, but for my son, for my family, because it's given me the opportunity to be involved in something that absolutely changed my life. It gave me confidence. It's the reason why I'm on the stage. It's the reason why I was able to take a stance, losing everything, but also bringing awareness to social justice issues that affect our lives daily.
Yeah.
So I feel like just women being in sports and being able to get equality through sports has impacted my life tremendously.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here today without it.
I love it. Kathy, you are the CEO of LA88, right? Olympics coming LA. You've been a leader for 30 years, trailblazing, just by being visible. But you have your own story with Title IX. Again, you're one of the leading women in business, but leading business leaders in sports. And I'm sure Title IX has impacted your life and how you go about leading both LA28, but all the work you've done before. So tell me how Title IX's impacted you.
Well, first of all, great to be on with such impressive women, and I'm sure as we hear from Carol versus both of these wonderful athletes, she said I've been in business for 30 years, which means I'm a little older than 30.
She's like legit runs the show for LA.
I appreciate that, but in 1972 when Title IX was passed, I was 3 years old, so you can do the math. And I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., and so it was actually a period of time that we probably adopted Title IX a little bit more rapidly than did many other parts of the country. And I grew up as an athlete. I grew up playing basketball. I grew up playing soccer, which was my sport, and I went on to play in college as a scholarship Division I athlete, soccer. And it was at a time when we were at the early stages, and I only raise it this way. I just recently went back for an alumni reunion. I went to the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, one of the early programs that started in women's soccer. We know where that has since gone. And there were women there from 1984 who actually started the program. And what I didn't even realize was that was 7 years before I graduated. It was 3 years before I came to the school, and it was these women who actually had the courage to go to the athletic department and say, this was passed in 1972. We deserve to have a varsity program. And it sort of resonated with me, the opportunities that I was given, because obviously the law was enacted and I had opportunities to play. But it took a moment for somebody to push, to say, we have a right. to play. We have a right to be a Division I program. And what you realize is whether it's the activism that Gwen is engaged in, or what these women did back in 1984, I was the beneficiary of that. And I never, therefore, knew that I couldn't play. I could play Division I, and that actually then became really the platform on which I was able to build a business career, which also means that I wasn't good enough to keep playing, said a different way. But yeah, so here I am today. I was able to turn all those experiences, which would not, I don't think it would have happened had it not been for the 1972 legislation. Yeah. And I encourage us all, when you get asked that question once again, who's been impacted by Title IX, every hand in this room should go up. Yeah. So that's how it affected me.
And again, I'll just speak for you because I've seen your leadership firsthand. Both you oversee the Olympic and Paralympics, both men and women. Mm-hmm. You're building a future of the Olympics that is inclusive, and having, having more women, having more people of color, having more inclusion in general at the leadership level makes such a difference. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you. Chiney, you played last night. I can't believe you're here.
I know.
Me neither.
So Chiney Ogwumike is a 2-time WNBA All-Star for the Sparks. I got to see her last night. Amazing.
Woo! Yeah.
And talk about women multitasking. Full-time ESPN commentator, NBA analyst. In 2020, became the first Black woman to host a national daily sports talk radio show. Most recently, you were ESPN's NBA Today, NBA Countdown, Forbes 30 for 30. Like, you're playing and you have like a full-time career. And by the way, Stanford graduate, so no big deal. But you played at a university and along with your sisters, but you know about Title IX. Tell me when you learned about it. Tell me about its impact in your life, and congratulations for being here today. Because I'd be doing rehab after that.
Right. I'm good. We'll be all right. If you see this, I'm sorry. I just realized backstage I saw my stitches on. I got hit in the head. Thankfully, they called the foul against me at first. I was like, what? And then they reversed it. So just forgive me for my appearance. I tried to get it together. Title IX means everything to me. Title IX, first and foremost, is, as you mentioned, it's all about education. And part of that education is right here on the stage with me. You listed a lot of the great things that I've been very privileged and fortunate to be able to do working at ESPN and being a current basketball player, but none of those things are possible without other women in particular paving the way. I wouldn't have really had my opportunity without Carol Stiff. Carol Stiff right here is just amazing, badass, I'm still in I'm still in the locker room language right now. Amazing woman that has been such a great mentor to me. And Title IX is about the initial generation that really got the ball rolling with creating, and I say, equality of opportunity, and that's what I think of Title IX. But I also think the education aspect means we have the privilege to educate the rising generation about this, which means we have staying power. 50 years means we teach, I look at my colleague Candace Parker, who plays her daughter about Title IX, and she did a doc on it. For me, when I was at Stanford, I was coached by Tara Vanderveer, a Hall of Fame basketball coach, who, speaking of Candace and the synergies, the University of Tennessee Volunteers coach, the late great Pat Summitt. That's when the change and shift within our culture happened, and Pat and Tara taught us not to take our opportunities with sport for granted, because that's not what they had. And that really shifted 50 years ago. And so just coming into school, and you're 18, you're trying to figure things out, but understanding your history, understanding that we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, who did not have the opportunities but had the same passion, I think that to me is what it's all about.
I love it. So you saved the drum roll.
Yeah.
You already did my job, but Carol Stiff, again, if you should know, living legend. Over 31 years at ESPN, Women's Basketball Hall of Fame inductee. You're now with Fast Studios as an advisor, but you've seen the landscape, and that's what I wanted to ask you. I was educated. I was the president of the Women's Sports Foundation, Billie Jean King, and what they do, and I'm like, whoa, this this law, this like protects me. And I started thinking about ice time at Harvard and promotion, and I was trying to educate, but you've lived it. You've been advocating behind the scenes and obviously having a direct impact on current athletes. Tell me the impact on your life first, but like where you believe we are 50 years into Title IX.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, and thanks for all of you staying here and listening. I grew up playing sports like everyone here, and actually was given, sneakers and was treated with great respect. It wasn't until I left my playing years and went into corporate America where really Title IX doesn't really affect because, well, I guess, no, not really. We don't get federal funding, we get cash from customers. So in any case, always asking the question why, but the skills that I learned as a player and as an athlete and fighting for, equality in the corporate America sector and asking why can't we be on a Monday night and not up on a Sunday night, and always having my facts in check and just being well prepared. That all came from playing athletics, as you know. But where are we? We're still not there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not. Let me just give one quick anecdote. As a parent, and people, how many parents in the room? Okay. My daughter comes home from high school. This really pertains to all of us in this room. Basically, the lesson here is if you see something, say something. So my daughter came home from high school and said, I can't get geometry help after school. And I said, well, why not? And she said, because I had to get on the bus to go across town and practice with the girls' soccer team. So my first question to her was, well, where's Jimmy from the boys' soccer team practicing? And of course, she said, right out the back door and onto the field. And I said, Jillian, that's a violation of Title IX. The school's getting federal funding. And Jimmy, because he's on the boys' team, is getting a better education than you are because you have to go across town. So of course she rolls her eyes, oh boy, here we go. And I went to the superintendent in a very gingerly way and just pointed out that they were in violation of Title IX. But I came with a solution, everybody. I came with a solution, and the simple solution was just flip-flop the bus every other week. The boys go there and the girls stay. And that's the essence of Title IX. It's equality for all.
Love it. Well, thank you for what you've done and continue to do. Gwen, we got a photo of you. Everyone knows Gwen, right? Gwen transcends sport. She really does. Tell us about this photo. It's related to Title IX because it's about you using your platform. We won't get into the politics, but I want to understand this moment and how it's impacted your life. And we're here talking about equality. That's what this whole summit is about. That's what Title IX is about. Tell me about this moment.
For sure. So in this moment, I feel like I found my voice, right? I think about Rose Robinson, a phenomenal track and field athlete who used her athleticism, her platform to speak on social justice issues. Yeah. I think about Wyoming Tyus. I think about all these women who fought for not only social justice, but equality for women in sport and out of sport, to be heard, to be seen, to be valued. And in this moment, I feel like, I rose to the occasion and I did something that was very near and dear to my heart. Again, not only for me, but for my son and my community. And I felt like I said something that really, made people feel uncomfortable, but it was necessary for the movement, for forward progression, for our country. I was nervous, of course. I was afraid. I lost everything. But I feel like me staying in the sport and me advocating for equality, not just politically, but for women in the sport, minorities in the sport, women who are not represented. We don't have a lot of coaches who look like us. We don't have owners who look like us. We don't have people in the sport that are representing women. And so, I think I spoke for a lot of things in that moment. And it was a time for me to, rise to the occasion and be who I wanted to be, for other women to stay in the sport, to have confidence, and just to believe in themselves.
I love it.
For sure.
Congratulations. Well, well, thank you for what you've done and continue to do. Gwen, we got a photo of you. It's who never knows Gwen, right? Yeah, great role model. Chiney, I would like to talk to you then about just activism in general, obviously playing off of Gwen, and the idea that we all have a voice, we all have a platform. You have two platforms. You have your sports platform, your broadcasting platform. Whether it's with the Sparks or individually, how are you using your platform? How are you affecting positive change through, just being yourself? I mentioned Kathy. Kathy doesn't have to do anything. She just shows up. She's the only woman in the room. She's like, I'm making a difference, because if you can see it, you can be it. But you have a platform. What are you doing? Tell us about your work.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. It's, that concept of you cannot be what you cannot see.
Yeah.
And for so long, I think, especially women of color, have been invisible yet doing a lot of the work. And so when we think of activism, I think about my league, the WNBA, and I always say we're not new to this, but we're true to this.
Amen.
We've been consistent in our advocacy. And I think starting in 2020, people started seeing what was hidden in the darkness finally was coming to light with what we were doing in the work. And it really translated into, to some degree, changing the landscape of our country and our advocacy, especially in the political arenas. And so to be a part of the 144, which, by the way, we've been corrected because the way the salary cap goes, people are like, well, it's really 132 because some teams are carrying 11 now, like whatever. But to be one of the 144 women of the WNBA, I always joke and tell people, and forgive me for this, but we're almost like, I'm every woman. I can't sing, but you can find every kind of woman in the WNBA. I know, you laughing at my voice at heart? Okay. But you can find every kind of woman in the WNBA, and we all know we don't play for the money. I mean, now we kind of do, but we don't really play for the money. We play for the legacy. We play to carry that, next generation's passion forward. We know that the league that we're experiencing right now is not the league that my little sisters or the children of my sisters would experience. We want that to be better. We're playing because we understand we're at the intersection of everything that matters most to our communities in our advocacy. And so to be a part of the WNBA, and when I think about athletes and activism, a lot of people say, why are you choosing to do this? I was because we don't have a choice. We understand that we are the exception and not the norm, that what we experience with our success is not normalized within most of the communities that we look like and represent. And so who else but us to speak on the issues? Mm-hmm. And to be real, Black women are very loyal to the causes that matter to them, even at the point of I wouldn't say hurting ourselves, but we are willing to put ourselves on the line knowing that we're the only ones that will do it for us. Yeah. And so as a league that's predominantly full of Black women and allies, including men, I think activism, we realize that there's so much at stake for us not to carry our voice. So you've heard our voice in many different ways. And
I love it.
It's been really liberating because at one point we got fined for wearing t-shirts that said things. We got fined for choosing to have owners that want to fly us, private. I mean, that might be spilling some tea, but it was in an article.
All right, we're moving on.
My point is that we understand that, as women, you got to make a little trouble to make some noise and make some history. And I think we're making incremental steps towards history. We're aligning ourselves with allies and people that support us. And so our activism is really our authentic self. Yeah. It just is the platform of sports that makes all of it possible.
I love it.
And so it's been cool.
Nice. I love it. So playing off of that, if you haven't heard of my company, Sports Innovation Lab, we have a deep piece of research called the FAM Project, where we actually looked at women's sports through the lens of business, because business sometimes moves the needle more than the right thing to do. It hits your bottom line. So the FAM Project actually showed that activism, when fluid fans, the consumer, aligns with their values. There's a values-based consumer that is attaching themselves. You're selling more tickets. You're selling more merch. You have brand loyalty because of that authenticity. So keep it up, all right?
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, on to you, because now you run an organization. I mean, the LA Olympics is coming to town, and you've got this beautiful platform based on your personal experience with Title IX, equality, and what these ladies just talked about. How are you thinking about the future of the games, inclusion, and again, it's not just the right thing to do, it's actually good for the bottom line. I'm sure you think of both sides of the equation here.
Yeah, no question. Well, first of all, let's think back to 1996, the Atlanta Olympic Games, 1996. I've already mentioned I was a soccer player, and the U.S. women were playing in the U.S. women's soccer team, although there was also a big, that was also the first time for women's basketball. And 1996 was really a monumental moment for women in sport because of the 1996 Olympics. Now let me explain something that's really interesting, and Carol, you can jump in on this one too. The women's national team soccer team was going for the gold medal, and they did not feature on NBC. They cut in and out of the game to show snippets of the game, and they cut away before the women got their gold medal. True story. 1999, we all know what happened in Pasadena and the crazy success of the 1999 Women's World Cup. But now as we head to Tokyo, and it's interesting because the women of Team USA are really the gold standard. And so in fact, when we start talking about the U.S. women's soccer team coming off of their second consecutive World Cup victory in France and how they would feature as a part of NBC's coverage. Speaking of the athletes of Team USA, the women feature. Just think about that. That's not a long time that we've seen this evolution occur. And so progress happens because we keep at it. And so platform, authenticity, a lot of things that we're going to talk about here, and Carol can go on and probably go a lot deeper even than I could. But it's no secret that today ESPN is putting women's gymnastics on Friday night, or they're putting the women's softball World Series on Friday nights on ESPN, that they're putting you all on the bigger network, and that they're featuring you in prime time. It's good business.
Absolutely.
So this isn't hard for me in the role that I have. It's just that I have the ability now to bring a lot of people, and it's quantifiable that if you have a more diverse team that sits around the table, you're going to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the people that I'm looking for, and that I've got many who are here today, they come from the community, and it's not because it's the right thing to do. It's because, gosh darn it, I mean, like, it's good for what we want to try to achieve. Yeah. And so that's easy.
I love it. I love it. We'll keep it up. And I just want to, I was on the board of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I think the single greatest asset, correct me if you think differently, that the Olympic movement has is Title IX.
Yeah, no question.
It gives a foundational platform to train athletes, for women specifically, team sport women. I mean, I got 4 years of great training, and it's like the rest of the world doesn't have a Title IX. They don't. Like, anyway, I'm just saying, we got to protect this thing, if only for the Olympic and Paralympic movement. Carol, flip it over to you on the business side, since Kathy teed you up.
Okay.
You are like, you've been pushing behind the scenes, not just helping athletes, but like, hey, ESPN, put more women on. You're now helping Women's Sports Network. You're advising a number of companies. You know what Kathy just said is true. Like, give them prime time. They're going to sell tickets. Tell me about your work and, again, its impact and the implications of that on equality across sport.
That's a loaded question. I'll try and
Just
keep
answer
it.
it.
All right,
No big deal.
okay.
You got it.
So
That's what to do here.
it drove me absolutely crazy, my 31 years at ESPN, on why corporate America is not supporting women that stay in college, women that are role models, women that sign autographs before NIL, women that give back, women that are mothers, and just great people. And I couldn't understand why corporate America wasn't doubling down on. I would want my brand associated with this, So that's number one. And number two is making sure that we do place the women and women's sports in opportune windows, in great programming windows, not up against clutter, like not always on a Sunday afternoon up against the NFL, or golf or NBA. Those are the windows that were given traditionally to women's sports. Now, what we're seeing here in 50 years of Title IX is corporate America is now starting to invest in women's sports, and I applaud some folks here in the room from ESPN Sales that are leading the way with the Googles and the Dick's Sporting Goods, and you people need
Brands.
to support those
Step up.
brands. And
Right,
support them.
shout out to the brands.
Yeah, shout out to the brands.
Yeah.
And then the last part, which you mentioned, is the launching of a women's sports network. that's going to be streamed, and it's going to be free, and it's going to be great access, but it's going to be stories that we can tell leading up to games that might be on ABC, but we'll be telling the stories and giving you a daily, I'm glad you're all sitting down for this news, we're going to bring a daily news sports highlights show. Think of Sports Center, but only women's sports every day.
All right.
And the title of the show, it's coming this fall, and it's going to be every day, 30 minutes a day, is called Game On. Game On.
All right. All right. All right. If you build it, they will come. I'm a big believer. For those that are like, I love Title IX, 50 years. I want it to last another 50. I want it to be there. Again, it's an educational act to protect men and women, boys and girls, not just sports, but education. There's a program called Demand X. Give us a quick shout out. What's Demand X?
Demand 9.
Sorry.
I'm going to ask
Title
you,
IX.
You can all get off your emails and go to Demand 9, and all it is a pledge, and just click it and Demand 9. And if you want to learn more about the education of Title IX for your own children or your grandchildren, please do this, please.
All right, you got some action you can do. I'm like, I'm fired up, what do I do? All right, you got something to do now. All right, we're gonna go quickly, starting from the back here. 50 years from now, are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Where do you want Title IX to be in 50 years?
Well, Carol knows I'm like a glass half full type of girl, so I'm obviously optimistic. But where I'd want it to be is a point where we look to it as a landmark legislation that we're like, oh, like things are just normal now. You know, it's not like we're operating at a deficit as women with our opportunities. We want equal. It's funny because like you talk to young kids, and we see a lot of them in the WNBA, and they're like, oh yeah, like the women's game is fun. They don't even know the stereotypes that existed for me when I was growing up saying, oh, why are you playing basketball? You know, that doesn't operate in their brains because we're operating from a way more equal point of view. And so I'm hoping in 50 years that that playing field is completely level. We look back at Title IX like, oh, this is what, you know, changed it all. And we just are, you know, it's like, you know, maybe I'm still in my basketball mode.
No, that's what we want. 50 years, we don't even need it.
You know, hoopers hoop, right? It doesn't matter what you look like, you know, if you got game, you got game. I feel like that's the energy we want the world to operate on, whether you're playing basketball, you're in the corporate arena, or you're just operating with family and friends. We are here as equals, and opportunities should be destined as such.
Love it. Kathy.
Can't rest on our laurels, though, so we have to make it be. So, for example, we think that sport is also about equity and making sure that we provide opportunities to kids today that may not otherwise have opportunities. Sport today is actually still expensive, or it's expensive despite the need just for a green space or a court and a ball. It's become expensive. So we, from an Olympics and whatever I work for, LA28, I'm looking at LA84 back there, it's driving me nuts. Anyway, LA28, it's on my shirt, I got it. But from our perspective, it's how do we use the games and what we're putting forward for 2028 and make sure that we actually leave it better than we found it. And that includes a massive commitment to make sure that we get kids in Los Angeles opportunities that they might not otherwise have. So for us, that is a grant of $160 million from now until 2028.
Well, wait,
Make
hold on.
sure.
Did you say 160 million?
$160 million. I saw AP Diaz here with LA Rexham Park. We're trying to reduce barriers of entry, which predominantly affect women and girls. And so for us, it's about how do we make sure, boys and girls both, but we reduce the barriers of entry for more people to have opportunity to play. That's how we're going to pay it forward. That's how we're going to leave it better than we found it. So not a single person in this room can take for granted the work that's been done over 50 years. We all have to do something.
Love it. Gwen.
Yeah, I feel like just to piggyback, you know, holding these major corporations and foundations just responsible to make sure we are putting our investments in women in sports. Because women consume sports too. Like, we watch sports, we pay for sports, we like to see sports. So just understanding the fact that if we want this to continue from 50 years from now, we have to invest. We have to make sure there is representation, not only women, but minority women, black women, women of color, ownership, all of these things so that we can continue to grow and actually see it. Like if we don't see it, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not even going to go 50 years. You guys handle that. What I'd like to see immediately is the WNBA to get charter flights like the NBA.
Woo, preach. Because Carol, I got 3 games in 4 days coming up, like tomorrow. So can we do that?
It's crazy. It's crazy to think you have to go from Hartford, Connecticut to Seattle to play a finals game on ABC, and then you wonder why there's a missed layup. You're
Absolutely.
exhausted. You're in the middle seat. I also would love to see our female athletes not have to go overseas like Brittany Griner. And we need to bring her home, and that starts.
Yeah.
So I want immediate change, and I'm going to demand 9, but I'm going to ask you the same question. Where do you see us?
All right, I'll throw it back on me, Carol, thanks. I think in 50 years, I think NIL, women are going to win because of NIL. And I'll tell you, I think, again, a lot of the macro trends we studied with the FAM project, we looked at technology. It's allowing access in a way I didn't have. When I was competing, I was like one of the first on Twitter. I'm like trying to, hey, I'm out here. I couldn't go direct to consumer. I couldn't talk to my fan. Athletes can do that. I don't think technology, social activism and awareness. I think people are waking up going, why aren't women included? Why are things unequal across the board? So I think there's a social awareness and the fact that female athletes do it well. They're authentic. They tell the story. They're vulnerable. I think women's sports is in the perfect position to lean into it. So I'm super bullish. I'm glass half full. I think in 50 years, Title IX will be there to protect the men. Just saying it.
Ooh.
I think women's sports is on a rise.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And we're going to say, more women are in the collegiate system, which remember, allocation for sports is based on how many people are in. So I'm like, we're going to be more women, and that's the trend we're seeing.
In college. That's
And Title IX, like the men are going to be like, what's up with that? Like, look at her getting all the attention. What about me? So that's my prediction.
I would drop the mic if I were
Let's
you.
go. All right.
All right.
I just want to say thank you to this amazing panel, to everyone that's here. Go on, demand 9. I was looking at the Roman numeral wrong. But you all have power in your communities. Bring your kids to a women's sports event.
Yeah.
Collegiate event, a pro event. Buy a ticket. Speak up, buy a ticket, and give them away. Like, buy a ticket to this game. I was
July
like, this
4th,
is cool.
July 3rd, July 7th, crypto.com.
Hey, I have some right now.
Like, walk across the street. We'll be there.
So if everyone here, Renata, where's Renata? We're gonna reconvene on the 3rd, and everyone's gonna buy a ticket, and there's gonna be a packed section of LA84 folks in the house, all right?
Oh, you can say LA Sparks, that's
all right.
fine.
No, for you.
Yeah, there we go, good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.